as a form of divination, was specifically prohibited by God's law to Israel. 19. 26. 18. 10. But apostates like Judean king Manasseh did look for omens. 2 Kai 17. 17. 21. 6. Since this practice is condemned in the scriptures, evidently faithful Joseph's comment about use of his silver cup to read omens was merely part of the ruse. G 44. 5. 15. By making the comment, Joseph represented himself, not as one having faith in Jehovah, but as an administrator of a land where false worship prevailed. He thus gave no hint of having anything in common with his brothers and kept his true identity concealed from them. See divination. Omer. A dry measure amounting to 1/10 of an FR. X 16. 16, 18, 22, 32, 33, 36. The FR measure is calculated at 22L20 dry quart on the basis of archaeological evidence concerning the capacity of the corresponding liquid measure bath. Compares 45. 10, 11. An omer measure would therefore equal 2.2L2 dry quart. A comparison of the Hebrew text of Exodus 29. 40 and Numbers 28. 5 reveals that a 10th part means 1/10 of an FR, or an omer. This provides a basis for rendering the Hebrew 10th Mount of Olives numbers represent height in meters. Mount Scopus 820, Mount of Olives 812 t. V. OFKIDRON Temple Area 740, Mount of Offense 740, Olmri 554 Partas 10th of an FR. New 15. 4, at, NW, Ro, JP. Omri. 1. 5th listed among the 9 sons or descendants of Becca, a son of Benjamin. 1 ch 7. 6, 8. 2. Prince of the tribe of Issachar during David's reign. Son of Michael. 1 ch 27. 18, 22. 3. 6th king of the northern 10-tribe kingdom of Israel. Nothing of Omri's ancestry is recorded, not even the name of his father or tribe. Omri founded the 3rd dynasty of Israel. Those of Jeroboam and Baasha preceded, his son Ahab and grandsons Ahijah and Jehoram succeeding him, all 4 totaling some 46 years c. 951-905 BCE on the throne. Omri's granddaughter Athaliah ruled 6 years on the throne of Judah. 2 Kai 8. 26. 11. 1-3. 2 ch 22. 2 Jehu, who wiped out the house of Ahab and established the next dynasty of Israel, is called a son that is, successor of Omri on the black obelisk of Shalmaneser 3. Ancient Near Eastern Texts, edited by J. Pritchard, 1974, p. 281. In fact, the Assyrians continued calling Israel the land of Omri and Israel's kings the house of Omri long after his descendants had ceased ruling. A tribute to his power. Omri came to the throne, not by inheritance, but by the sword. He had been chief of Israel's army under King Elah and perhaps under his predecessor Baasha when Zimri, chief of half the chariots, overthrew Elah, took the kingship for himself, and wiped out the house and friends of Baasha. As soon as this was reported to the Israelite army, at the time camped against the Philistines at Gibbethon, all Israel, doubtless the tribal heads in the camp, made Omri their king. At once they withdrew from Gibbethon and stormed Zimri's capital Tirzah. Zimri, seeing the hopelessness of his cause, burned down the king's house over himself, tragically ending his 7-day rule. 1 Kai 16. 8-20. But a new rival to Omri presented himself, Tibni the son of Ginath. The populace remained divided for about 4 years, during which time civil war presumably raged until Omri's supporters defeated Tibni's, securing undisputed rule for Omri. Zimri had died in the 27th year of King Asa of Judah c. 951 BCE. 1 Kai 16. 15-18. Finally, in the 31st year of Asa c. 947 BCE, Tibni died in some unstated way, leaving Omri about 8 years of sole rule. 1 Kai 16. 21-23, 29. See chronology. Mightiness is attributed to King Omri. 1 Kai 16. 27 According to lines 4 through 8 of the Moabite stone, Omri brought Moab into subjection, which domination Ahab continued. 2 Kai 3. 4 Midway in his reign, Omri wisely moved his capital away from Tirzah, which he had found so easy to capture. He purchased the mountain owned by Shema, well suited for fortifying, and there he built a new city, Samaria, which was able to withstand long sieges. 1 Kai 16. 23, 24 Cuneiform inscriptions likewise call him its founder, and it was also his burial place. 1 Kai 16. 28 In the course of his reign, Omri met with various setbacks, such as having to surrender some cities to the king of Syria. 1 Kai 20. 34 On having to pay tribute to Assyria, he being the first Israelite king to do so. Religiously, Omri continued the downward trend of the northern kingdom. He continued Jeroboam's idolatry. In fact, he kept doing what was bad in the eyes of Jehovah and came to do worse than all who were prior to him. 1 Kai 16. 25, 26 Some 200 years later, through Micah, Jehovah condemned Israel for following the statutes of Omri. 6. 16. 4. A Judite whose descendant lived in Jerusalem following the Babylonian exile. 1 Ch 9. 3, 4. On. The name of a person and a place. 1. Generative power. Dynamic energy. A son of Peleth. A principal man of the tribe of Reuben. New 16. When he was among those raising a protest against Moses and Aaron, but his name does not appear among the rebels in their later speeches to Moses or when they were punished by Jehovah with destruction. New 16. 2, 3, 12-14, 23-35 This may be due to his playing a very textually acute Muritra Longo Onesimus 555 In course of time the priesthood of On became very wealthy, rivaling the priesthood of Memphis in this respect, and being surpassed only by the priesthood of Thebes biblical No Amen. Connected with its temple to the sun, a school was operated for training priests and for the teaching of medicine. Greek philosophers and scholars were drawn there to learn the priestly theology, and On became celebrated as a center of Egyptian wisdom. The prophet Jeremiah was inspired to foretell that King Nebuchadnezzar would overrun Egypt and break to pieces the pillars of Beth Shemesh, which is in the land of Egypt. 43. 10-13 Beth Shemesh corresponds somewhat to the Greek name Heliopolis and means house of the sun. Hence the reference here is likely to the city of On, and the pillars that were to be broken may well refer to the many obelisks around the temple of the sun. Ezekiel's prophecy contains a similar warning. As 30. 10, 17 Here the Hebrew vowel pointing of the name varies from that of Genesis so that the name literally is Aven-heb. Awen. Some scholars suggest that it was done as a play on words, since Aven means hurtfulness. Something hurtful, and On was a center of idolatry. This may also be the case at Isaiah 19. 18, where the Masoretic text refers to one of the 5 cities in the land of Egypt speaking the language of Canaan and swearing to Jehovah as the city of tearing down Heb. Iahirez. The Dead Sea Scroll of Isaiah has Iahirez, meaning city of the sun, thus pointing to On Heliopolis. Here again there may be an intentional play on words, Hirez tearing down being substituted for Cherez, another Hebrew word for sun, less common than Shemesh in view of Jehovah's intention to destroy the idolatrous city of On. The paraphrase of this portion of the verse found in the Aramaic Targums reads, City of the house of the sun, which is to be destroyed. Besides the foretold destructive invasion by Nebuchadnezzar, On Heliopolis evidently suffered a further blow in Cambyses who conquered Egypt according to Strabo, Greek geographer who lived near the start of the Common Era. Geography, 17, I, 27 By Strabo's time Heliopolis had lost its position of importance and was partially deserted. Today, the village called Almatari occupies part of the ancient site, and all that remains there of the earlier splendor is a single obelisk of red granite dating from the reign of Sesostris. Other obelisks from Heliopolis are now to be found in New York, London, and Rome. Onmonam from a root meaning generative power. Dynamic energy. 1. Last of the 5 listed sons of Horite Sheikh Shobal, and grandson of the Horite's forefather Ser. GE 36. 20, 21, 23. 1 Ch 1. 40. 2. A son of Dramiel and a link in the Dramielite genealogy in the tribe of Judah. His mother's name was Atara. 1ch2. 26, 28. Onan from a root meaning generative power. Dynamic energy. A son of Judah, his second by the Canaanite daughter of Shur. GE 38. 2-4. 1ch2. 3. After Onan's childless older brother who was put to death by Jehovah for wrongdoing, Onan was told by Judah to perform brother-in-law marriage with his widow Tamar. If a son was produced, he would not be the founder of Onan's family, and the firstborn's inheritance would belong to him as an heir to. Whereas if no heir came, Onan would get the inheritance for himself. When Onan had relations with Tamar, he wasted his semen on the earth instead of giving it to her. This was not an act of masturbation on the part of Onan, for the account says when he did have relations with his brother's wife he spilled his semen. Apparently it was a case of coitus interruptus, in which Onan purposely prevented ejaculation of his semen into Tamar's genital tract. For his disobedience to his father, his covetousness, and his sin against the divine arrangement of marriage, not for self-abuse, o textoi acute muritra longo, Onesiphorus 556 reluctance in view of how good a companion he has become. The apostle, however, had no way of forcing Onesimus to make the return, so it depended on and resulted from Onesimus' own willingness to go. In dispatching Onesimus, Paul arranged for Tychicus to accompany him and for the two to carry a letter and a report to Colossae. Col 4. 7-9. Additionally, Paul gave Onesimus his letter to Philemon, even though it was late enough in his imprisonment that Paul was expecting release and looking forward to visiting Philemon personally. PHM 22. This latter letter might be termed one of reintroduction and recommendation for Onesimus, in which Paul assured Philemon of the good Christian ministry and new personality of Onesimus.